We talk Ken Holland's hire, the Kings offseason additions, and the future of Anze Kopitar, and more with Austin Stanovich of the Sporting Tribune on this episode of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season's right around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years. Also one of the co-hosts of Locked On NHL Game Night, a nightly NHL recap show during the season. And right now previewing the offseason of all 32 NHL teams. We are happy to welcome back to the show one of our favorite guests and certainly a semi-frequent contributor. He is Austin Stanovich of the Sporting Tribune, who covers the LA Kings. You can check out his work at thesportingtribune.com. Follow him on X Twitter at astanovich68. Hey, Austin, how are you?
I'm doing good, Eddie. Always excited to come on here and talk Kings with you.
I appreciate that. And a lot has happened since the last time we chatted. It was right after the season ended, unfortunately, at the hands of the Edmonton Oilers once again. And we got a lot to talk about, and I'm interested to get your opinion on a variety of topics. But before we get into the big offseason moves, I do want to ask you for your opinion on former general manager Rob Blake and his tenure as GM. There was certainly some good and some bad, but overall, how do you kind of look at it as far as where he took over the franchise to where he kind of left it?
Yeah, I think it's hard looking back on Rob Blake's tenure because I think there, like you said, there was a lot of good, but in the end, it really did, maybe it's an over exaggeration to say crash and burn for him, but it really ended with people not being happy with the job he did, really forgetting about some of the good things he did, and I totally get that. But it's hard to separate the kind of change in direction it seemed like the Kings went in after COVID happened, right? Like they were building towards this more long-term rebuild. We kept hearing them talk about patience and patience and patience. And then that hit, and it seemed like they really took a hard right turn there and started focusing on winning now and that kind of stuff. And after that happened, I think a lot of the moves that we saw him make and the organization as a whole make kind of started to, I've always said they maybe went out of that rebuild too early. And I think that's what ended up really hurting Rob Blake's tenure. And I think that's what he's going to be remembered for. And of course, the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. And there's been a lot of talk about, was that a Rob Blake move? Was that maybe more of a Luc Robitaille move? And the truth is, we'll never really know. But I think he is going to be forever tied to that trade. I think it shaped the Kings for a while now. I mean, I know they were able to get out of it and get Darcy Kemper, which ended up being a good move, but they gave up so much to get him. It ended so disastrously. And fair or not, he's going to be forever linked to that move, and it's a pretty bad one. So it didn't end well. I think there's a lot of respect for how it ended on his end, where he kind of walked away from what we hear. He said, this hasn't been good enough on my end. I know you guys want me to come back, but I think it's time for me to step away. I think you have to have a lot of respect for that. But, I mean, at the end, he didn't get it done as GM. For whatever reason, you can argue about whatever reason it was, the job never got done by him. The 4 straight defeats at Edmonton, the kind of getting stuck in the mud in a lot of ways. It didn't work. And that's what happens in this industry, right? If you're not getting it done, you don't keep your job for very long. So it was a up and down tenure. I think his legacy is probably going to make him look worse than he actually was because of how it ended. But at the end of the day, again, he just didn't get it done. And that's how it works in this industry.
Yeah, it's funny. I did an episode the other day talking about booing and Corey Perry. We were kind of talking about that odd situation, and I'll ask you about his acquisition a little bit later. But I remember, I was old enough to remember, when Rob Blake left and came back as an Avalanche, and he was booed mercilessly. Yeah. And this is a guy who's one of the greatest players in Kings history. His number 4 is hanging in the rafters. He comes back as an executive. He was a part, right, of the Stanley Cup winning team in 2014. He was like one of the front office members. And then he takes over, and he has a weird legacy with the LA Kings. I mean, there's a lot of greatness, but he's not, I don't know, it's not what it should be for the career he had and everything he kind of did for the Kings, unfortunately.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like, you have this guy who, I mean, alongside Drew Doughty's the best defenseman this organization's ever had. Like you said, he was a part of the organization for those cup wins. He's done so much good, but it seems like there's just a few massive things that hang over him that just muddy his legacy with this team. It is a kind of a weird, I can't think of another player with kind of a weirder relationship to a fan base given like how much they were able to give to the fan base and to the organization.
So the Kings go out and bring in a Hall of Famer in Ken Holland, won cups in Detroit, got the Oilers to a finals. The resume is what it is. I certainly think you could argue he's an old school type of a GM. What are your thoughts on Ken Holland being the guy hired to take over and hopefully get the Kings where they want to go?
Yeah, there's two ways to look at it. I think, like you said, the resume does speak for itself. There's a lot of winning in his history as a general manager and someone who works in front offices. There's a lot of positives to take from that and to take from his time working in the league. But there's a fair argument to be made that that winning happened a long time ago in a league that was very, very different to the one we find ourselves in now. I know we'll talk about some of the moves he's already made, and they're, you know, hasn't been a ton of excitement, I don't think, overall. I don't think that the fan base is, galvanized by a lot of things he did. I think a lot of people feel that it's a turn in the wrong direction in the sense that they're doing a lot of the things that they didn't like from Rob Blake, and they're really leaning into it more. I think ultimately with Ken Holland, the Kings have a direction they want to go into. They think that Ken Holland was the best option for that, and I think he's done a lot of things that the people who make decisions for the Kings will have really liked so far, and it's just a matter now of will it work or won't it, right? Like we can argue all we want whether these moves were good or not. At this point, all that really matters is do they win, right? Like if we can talk all we want about do I like the moves that he made? Do I like the fact that Ken Holland was brought in? All that matters now is does he win or doesn't he? And we just have to wait and see on that. Wouldn't have been my first choice personally. But again, I get why they did it. I understand the resume. I understand the respect he has within the league. So just a wait and see for me.
Yeah, I think for all of us, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's not even a wait and see for the regular season. It's a wait and see for the playoffs. So we've
Yeah,
got a
100%.
long way to wait. Hopefully they get there and get a chance to see if this actually bears fruit or not. I wanted to ask you before we got into the new guys about a couple of guys who are no longer with the Kings in Jordan Spence and Vladislav Gavrikov. For me, for Spence, I've always been a Spence fan. Maybe I liked him a little bit more than I should have. But I think the thing that really resonates with me with him was how quickly he kind of fell out of favor with the coaching staff. And I didn't see it coming based on what he did in the regular season. And it just seems like, I don't know if they overreacted or I was very surprised at how they decided this guy's not a part of our future. We need to get rid of him.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. That totally caught me off guard, his usage in the playoffs. I mean, every time you talk to anyone on the coaching staff about him during the regular season, they always had good things to say about him. I thought he had a very respectable regular season, potentially even a very good regular season. I think he brought an element that maybe the Kings decor was missing in his ability to move the puck and skill with the puck on his stick. But you're right. I mean, it just seemed like out of nowhere, once game 83 hit, all faith in Jordan Spence was lost. And I mean, they basically didn't want to play him. And I know, you know, I think any player in his situation would have been unhappy with that usage and probably would have wanted an exit at that point. I think that Jordan Spence certainly did. The Kings recently released that video where they kind of showed a behind the scenes of that trade, and Ken Holland told him, you're not going to get the opportunity you deserve here, so we're going to move you. I actually do have a lot of respect for Ken Holland for that. I mean, when the trade first happened, a lot of people didn't like the return. I think that the return was what it was. I think that's what the market dictated for Jordan Spence because they wanted to do it so quickly. And I agree that Jordan Spence is a better player than the assets they got back for him, but I actually do have a lot of respect for them saying, hey, you deserve more opportunity than we're willing to give you. We're going to make a trade happen, even if maybe we lose a little bit on it. But and we'll get into it with the guys they brought in, some of the guys to replace him on the decor. I do think that they are now drastically missing that element that he brought with the puck on his stick. And I think that's a valid concern for a lot of people. I agree with you. I liked Jordan Spence as a player. I get that there were some perceived shortcomings, especially with his size, but it never bothered me that much. It wasn't like, to me, Jordan Spence was ever a player that lacked compete or really played to his size. I think that I don't think that was ever a problem for me. So again, another thing, not the move I would have made. I get conceptually why they did it. I just think I fundamentally disagree with clearly how they were evaluating the player and his strengths and weaknesses. But when I try and look at it as like, if you view Jordan Spence the way that the Kings coaching staff and management viewed him, I get why they made the trade. Again, I just don't agree with that evaluation of him.
And real quick on Gavrikov, to a lesser extent, I mean, we knew that it was a possibility he was going to leave.
Yeah.
But it seemed very positive to me. And again, I'm not behind the scenes. I don't know what's going on. But when Rob Blake was there, seemed like this was almost a foregone conclusion that they were going to bring it back. Gavrikov in his exit interview, for what that's worth, seemed like, yeah, we're gonna work it out. It's fine. And then suddenly he's gone, and it didn't almost. And I don't know what the details were, and maybe we'll never know. It almost seemed like he didn't give LA a chance to even match what the Rangers were offering, or I don't know what the behind the scenes were. Anyway, he goes to New York for a deal that I thought was fairly reasonable. I thought that was a deal that the Kings would have been happy to sign him for, and yet maybe he didn't want to stay here. Maybe he wanted to go to New York. I was surprised how that kind of ended as well.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, like you said, we'll probably never know, but I agree 100%. When I saw that deal, I thought there's just no way that the Kings wouldn't have been willing to match that or didn't offer a similar kind of deal. I think by the time the deal in New York was signed, I wasn't surprised because all the reporting we got up to that point did kind of point to that. But if you'd asked me maybe 2 weeks before that, I would have been shocked to hear that he was signing for that contract out of LA because Rob, like you said, Rob Blake seemed very confident. Like at the deadline, he basically made it seem like the deal was done. They just needed to cross the T's and dot the I's. And then out of nowhere, it kind of slowly started to deteriorate. No idea why. Don't know what the reasoning behind that was on Gavrikov's side. Based on what we know, I would assume it was on Gavrikov's side that kind of everything fell through. Like I said, I think that deal was something the Kings probably would have been willing to match and maybe even did offer. But that's his prerogative to decide on his future, and that's why one of the reasons I think that he signed that short-term deal in LA is that he wanted to have that opportunity to decide his future, his long-term future, at a point where he was going to get probably the biggest contract of his career, and he has a chance to do that now. It's going to hurt the Kings a lot, obviously. I mean, he was their best defenseman last year, I think, and I think that's, I don't think you're going to find many arguments with that. I love Mikey Anderson. I thought he was stellar last year. I think Gavrikov was even better. So, it's a tough one for the Kings to swallow. You lose your best defenseman, and it seems like there was nothing you could do to stop that from happening. So that's going to be a tough one for them to kind of deal with, I think.
All right, coming up next, we'll talk about the new additions for the LA Kings. We'll do that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day. It's a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel's giving you a deal on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. So take a flyer on the MVP race. FanDuel has Lamar Jackson and the Ravens as the favorite. Crown your champion in August. FanDuel has the Bills, Ravens, and Eagles all at plus 700, or parlay your division winner dark horses. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. We continue with Austin Stanovich, covers the LA Kings for the Sporting Tribune. Austin, as you well know, the Kings added 5 players, 2 forwards and Corey Perry and Joel Armia, 2 defensemen and Brian Dumoulin and Cody Ceci, and a backup goalie and Anton Forsberg. If you're kind of taking the contracts out of it, which is hard to do, just from a pure talent standpoint and the Kings roster on the ice for next season, is this team better? Are they the same, or are they worse? And I know you're answering this now. We haven't seen them play, but just what do you think?
For now, I would say about the same, and I think that does create a problem that, your whole mantra is that you're pushing for a cup. You're a team that clearly wasn't good enough to win a cup, and then you kind of spin your tires in the mud at best based on the moves we saw. Like you said, we're saying that now before we see them actually play a game. A lot of things can change. A lot of players can kind of take that next step, which can help fill a lot of gaps. But just on the players subtracted and added, I think they're, roughly in the same spot. I do think shoring up the fourth line was a huge thing for this team. I mean, the unwillingness to play that fourth line from Jim Hiller, and I know a lot of people didn't like that move from him. I know a lot of people said you just got to play the guys you have, even if you don't fully trust them. I get that. I agree with Jim Hiller's assessment that that fourth line was not of an NHL caliber in the playoffs. So from that perspective, I understand where he was coming from, and I do think improving the fourth line was a giant need for this team going into the offseason. And I think they did do that. I think it's hard to look at Armia and Perry as additions and think they're not at least a better fourth line than they were last year. The problem is they didn't just need to upgrade their fourth line. They needed to do more with that forward group that they didn't do. So yes, you addressed a big need, but is it enough? I don't know. I would probably say no at this stage. And then you look at the decor, and let's take the most positive spin on getting Cody Ceci in for Jordan Spence and say that they're a similar level of talent players, right? They're like kind of equal caliber players. And let's say you did need to get bigger, you did need the presence that Cody Ceci brings for what it's worth. That's at best a minor upgrade. I don't think that, but we'll take the most positive view on it. What I think the Kings think that move is, it's a minor upgrade. I like Brian Dumoulin as a player. I think he's a solid player. There's no way that's anything but a huge downgrade from Vladislav Gavrikov. I mean, he again, like I said earlier, he was their best defenseman last year, and I don't think there's really a realistic world where Brian Dumoulin's the best defenseman on this Kings team. So you have to look at the Kings decor probably takes a little bit of a step back. And the Anton Forsberg move is one that I liked. I was never very confident in David Rittich, so I think you have a small upgrade in net. It kind of comes out to that net zero to me. You made a minor upgrade up front, you made a minor downgrade on the back end, and you got a better backup goalie. It's not disastrous, right? It's not horrible. It's not something that has fans or should have fans, jumping out of their seats, super excited
Yes.
for the season to start, because you made some boring good moves with your fourth line. You probably downgraded your D, and you got a backup goalie. I mean, it's not the kind of thing that really excites people.
I think the one thing that's given me a lot of angst is what they're going to do with Brandt Clark.
Yeah.
I've talked with the host of Locked On San Jose Sharks, and he's like, if Cody Ceci is on your third pairing, he's fine.
Yeah.
And I anticipate that's where he's going to be, because I think Brandt Clark needs to be on the second pairing for his development. He needs to take another step. I know Ken Holland has talked a lot about banking on the younger guys to take a next step.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is people are telling me, Eddie, they're paying Cody Ceci a lot of money. They're not going to pay him to be on the third line. And that's not, I understand what they're saying. It's not incorrect. $4.5 million is not what you pay a third pairing defenseman. What do you think? Is Brandt Clark going to be on that second pairing, or is it going to be Cody Ceci?
I think that's one of the biggest question marks for this team heading into the season. My view on it has been and will continue to be, I will believe that when I see it. I'm not saying that Brandt Clark definitely won't be the second pair defenseman, but I think him going from absolutely no faith in the playoffs, kind of similar to Brandt Clark, kind of similar to Jordan Spence, not getting a ton of minutes. He played under 10 minutes quite a bit, to now being like an 18 a minute a night kind of defenseman. It's just hard for me to believe. I think a lot of the things that the Kings coaching staff seems to not like about Brandt Clark's game, I don't think they're just going to suddenly disappear. Again, I'm not saying it definitely won't happen. I'll believe it when I see it. Like I said, it's like Joel Edmondson last year, right? Who would have thought Joel Edmondson was going to be playing 20 minutes a night? And we can talk about whether it was good or not, but they clearly love that kind of defenseman, and I think Cody Ceci fits into a similar mold. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Cody Ceci get similar usage as Joel Edmondson. And I know that Ken Holland's talked a lot about, wanting to have Brandt Clark take the next step and all that kind of thing. I hear GM say a lot of things that end up changing. I mean, Rob Blake 2 weeks before trading Cal Peterson talked about how they need him to be on the NHL roster and be a goalie for the Kings. Ken Holland talked about needing to get puck movers on the blue line this summer before signing Cody Ceci and Brian Dumoulin. Like, they say a lot of things that ended up not happening. And again, I've not seen any proof that this team's going to be like, you know what, we're going to deal with the issue, or I don't even want to call them issues. We're going to deal with the perceived warts in Brant Clark's game, and we'll just let him work through that. I haven't seen any proof that that's going to happen. So until I do, I'm not banking on Brant Clark being the second pair defenseman playing 18 minutes a night. And the other concern is, what's a power play going to look like? Are they going to stick with the 5-man unit? That's great. It worked really well. If they do, is Drew Doughty not going to be quarterbacking the second power play unit? That's another thing. I will believe that when I see it. I don't have any faith that Drew Doughty's just going to be off the power play. And now you have a situation where does Brant Clark play? I mean, I'm not saying it'll happen. I think it's just as likely Brant Clark is playing third pair minutes without a spot on the power play as it is that he's playing 18 minutes a night and quarterbacking one of your units. And I think that is a concerning situation for the Kings to be facing.
Real quick, they did bring back Andrei Kuzmenko. He certainly seemed to fit in very well while he was there. You talk about the power play, certainly help with that. How do you feel about, or what are you thinking about with a full season of Kuzmenko with the addition he had last year? Audition, not addition.
Yeah. I mean, I like the move. It was kind of a low risk, potential win-win for both parties. The Kings maybe get another good year at Andrei Kuzmenko. He gets to showcase his talent and maybe sign another big deal. I've said it a lot already, but that's another kind of believe it when I see it. I like Andrei Kuzmenko. I was someone who's very positive about that move when it was made, and it kind of bared a lot of fruit for the Kings. But we have seen this guy a lot in the NHL have a stint of games where he looks really good, and you go, wow, how is this guy not a locked on top 6 player? And then 6 months later, he looks like he doesn't even belong in the league. The hopeful kind of optimistic view on it is he's now found a home in the NHL. He's found a situation that works for him. And we saw some evidence of that. I'm not saying that's not going to be the case because, like I said, I really like the player, and I think there's a lot of potential for him to be a really transformative is probably a little too much, but remain a really solid player for this team. But we've just seen so many examples of inconsistency from his game that I'm not banking on that by any means. But again, it's a 1-year deal. They didn't pour a ton of money into him, so I like that move and I like him as a player. I would 25 goals, 50 points is where I'd be kind of hoping for from him. I think anything more is a little bit too optimistic, but I think if he gets you that, you're super happy with that deal, and I think that's a realistic target for him.
All right, up next, we'll talk a little bit more about this coming season for the LA Kings. That's next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Ever decided at the last minute you want to head to a ball game with friends and family? Maybe it's game day and you just realize you want to be in the stands. That's where Gametime can help you out. It is the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite some more friends with you. Gametime makes it all possible, and Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee. It takes the worry out of buying. Gametime is the official ticketing partner of Locked On Major League Baseball, and it makes browsing the app for exciting upcoming games for the Dodgers and Angels simple. Gametime has last-minute zone deals as well that can save you up to 10%. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, we're wrapping it up with Austin Stanovich of the Sporting Tribune. You can follow him on X and Twitter at @Stanovich68. Ken Holland did not hire head coach Jim Hiller, but pretty quickly made it known that the coach from last year was going to still be on the job this coming season. My question to you is, how hot do you think the seat is for Jim Hiller?
I don't think it's too hot. I mean, I think if they come out of the gates really slow, I think that it could quickly get hot. I think right now there's, still a little bit of cash in the ATM, as Todd McClellan liked to say. It's fans were very upset after the playoffs, and I get why. And a lot of people wanted Jim Hiller fired, and I get why. He had a 105-point season, though. I mean, that buys you a lot of leeway in this league having that good of a season. But like you said, Ken Holland didn't hire him. Ken Holland might have some, coaches in mind that he likes that he wants to bring in. So I think if the season starts out slow, it could get hot. Right now, I think it's lukewarm at most. I think they're pretty committed to Jim Hiller. He has a lot of respect within certainly the organization and even league wide. I mean, he's very well respected. I know as a guy, as a very high end hockey brain. So I don't think they'll rush to any decision on moving on from him unless things started pretty bad for this team.
Adrien Kempe is a UFA after this coming season. Clearly, he's a very important player now and for the future. I know that I'm a big fan and want them to just get this thing done. I do not want it to go into the season. I know we've heard he may be asking for $10 million a year. Do you think that they get this done before the season? And what would you pay him? Do you think he's worth $10 million a year?
Oh yeah, if they're not willing to pay this guy $10 million a year, what are we even doing here? Especially with the cap going up even more. I mean, this guy is for sure a $10 million player in today's NHL, especially when you think about next year's NHL. There's no way that you can justify saying, hey, $10 million is too much for our best player. And honestly, I with you, I am a huge fan of Adrien Kempe as a player. I think he is their best player, and it's not particularly close with how complete his game is, his ability to kind of score out of nothing, just the things he can do. I don't think anyone else on this team can do right now. I think he's the closest thing they have to a true superstar talent. And if you're, there's no way that he's signing for less than 9. And if you're really penny pinching your best player over like $1 million from 9 to 10, I mean, that's the kind of thing that a GM needs to get fired for. I'm not saying that that's what Ken Holland's doing, to be clear, but I'm just saying if that was the hang up, or if someone's saying he's not worth $10 million a year, it's insane. I mean, they needed to get it done before the season starts because, worst case scenario, you start the season poorly, you're out of the playoff picture, and Adrien Kempe is having a real long thought about what his future looks like for a team that just lost 4 years in a row and now maybe isn't making the playoffs going into the trade deadline with, him becoming a UFA over the summer. Fortunately for the Kings, I think that we hear a lot about, players love playing in LA. They want to spend their career here. I think Adrien Kempe is someone who that's very true for. So I think they do have that on their side. But yeah, I mean, he's not quite, deliver a blank check and ask how much he wants, but he's not far from it either. I mean, they 10 million is just give him that money if that's all he wants. Come on.
I'm a huge Anze Kopitar fan as well. Going to turn 38, I believe, on Sunday. 20th season coming up. Still, productive. I know that there are certainly those, you may be one of them, that question whether he's a number one center on a contending type team. I think that's legit. But I've said, I don't know if this is going to be his last year or not. I don't know that he knows. Maybe it's all determined on how the season goes and how he performs personally. Just kind of what are your thoughts on maybe a final season for Anze Kopitar?
I think this certainly will be his final season. I think when he signed that new contract, he he really hinted at it that summer, right? Like someone asked him like, what are you going to do after this contract? And he kind of said like, it's something I'll have to think about, but it's been a long ride at that point. Maybe that's the end of it. He said something to that effect, and kind of what we're hearing being reported, it seems like this is probably his last year. And yes, I mean, I am someone who does question if he's a number one center on a cup contender. I think Jim Fox put it best. The best role for him and this Kings team is like a Jordan Staal kind of shutdown role. However, if this is the last ride for Anze Kopitar, that is not the player we should remember. We should remember the, in my opinion, greatest King of all time, a player who in his prime, the only person who was better than him in the league was Sidney Crosby. I mean, like, I think the word underrated gets thrown around too much and gets watered down. He was underrated. It's hard to describe just how good Anze Kopitar was for people who didn't watch him night in and night out. It was absurd. I mean, he would go into every building and dominate your favorite center every single night, and it wasn't even close. The guy was unbelievable. And yes, to your point, is still a very good player at this level. I think that people get a little bit too hung up on, well, he's not a number one center on a cup contender. Sure, that's a crazy high bar for a 38-year-old. Like that's the Sidney Crosby level of 38-year-old generational one of one kind of talent type of player. Anze Kopitar is still better than most 28-year-olds in the league. he maybe isn't like that superstar that, we've seen for most of his career, but like you said, he's still a very good player. And if this is the last year, I mean, just enjoy it while you can, because like I've said many times, I love Quentin Byfield. I think Quentin Byfield is going to be an amazing player. Anyone who set the bar at him being successful as Anze Kopitar is insane, because there's like we could go another 20 years without seeing another Anze Kopitar level center on the Kings and still have some amazing players. That's how good I think Anze Kopitar is. I think that if it is his last year, just enjoy being able to watch one of the best players of his generation.
Could not agree more. He is Austin Stanovich of the Sporting Tribune. TheSportingTribune.com is where you can find some of his work, and you can follow him on X and Twitter at @AStanovich68. Austin, always a pleasure. Always enjoy the conversation. Really appreciate your time, and looking forward to talk to you again, if not right before the season, once the season gets going, which we can't wait for.
Sounds good. I'm always happy to come on anytime, Eddie.
All right. Thank you, Austin. Take care.
You too.
All right. For you everydayers, those of you listening to watch Locked On LA Kings every day, we have our fan feedback show coming up at the end of the week, as we do every week. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say about the shows that we had this week. Looking to chime in on things and maybe some of the things we discussed with Austin Stanovich. The email address to get your fan feedback in is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. And you're always welcome to post your comments in the comments section if you're watching on YouTube. Stay connected with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We're at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time. And as always, go Kings, go.